Afternoon, everyone. Please come in. You're very welcome. So, oh, doesn't work now. Can you hear me at the end? No? Yeah? Okay. So, welcome everyone. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the room of my boss, Wojciech Pieborowski, European Data Protection Supervisor, and also the unofficial photographer of the session, because you can see that he's already with the camera taking pictures for legacy. I know if you saw the albums of photographs that he has at home, you would understand why he's here. So, former data protection supervisor Giovanni Buttarelli like to say, welcome to the Olympic Games of data protection, when he was in these kind of conferences. And I love the analogy. So now this is no longer data protection conference, it's also an safe and ethical AI conference. And so you will have many athletes going around competing in different categories, marathon races. And here we have athletes with us that are experts in what they call triple jump. You know, in the athletics, when you do the boom, boom, boom. And these athletes are going triple jump on compliance, safety, and innovation. Then this is what sandboxing is all about. Making sure that you comply with the regulation, making sure that what you are going to put in the market is safe, and making sure that you're innovating as you do that. So it's a difficult athletic exercise. So as you know, humans, we are an insatiable animal. So we never have enough. When we have enough food and enough water, we start having higher desires. Then when we have our belly filled, then we start thinking about making friends, and then we start thinking about having a better house, and then we start thinking about having a partner, and then we start thinking about a concert, or a trip, or a book, or an opera. We are never satisfied, because this is what humans are all about. Endless list of needs, material and immaterial needs. And all these endless wish for more things, for needs, for progress, leads to problems and leads to conflicts. And this is why we need intelligence, because intelligence is about solving problems. And as human beings, we are experts in creating problems because of our endless wish list. So when you think of artificial intelligence, I think this is great news for humanity, because artificial intelligence helps to solve problems, and therefore it helps humanity. But only to the point that this artificial intelligence works for humanity and not against humanity. So help us to increase our wish list and not make us go backwards in humanity. So today we're going to talk not about any philosophical concepts, as I just did to frame the area. We are going to talk about something very concrete and very pragmatic, which is regulatory sandboxes. And to do that, we have with us the best athletes possible to compete in this triple jump exercise. On my left, I have Ms. Aleida Alcaide, who works as the Director General for Artificial Intelligence at the Spanish Ministry for Digital Transformation and Public Service. She does policy in Spain about AI, and she sits at the board of the Spanish Agency for the Supervision of AI. She will tell us in a minute that they have been piloting sandboxing in Spain and almost in Europe. So I'm sure she will have some lessons learned to share with all of us. To my right, I have Yvonne Finger, who is a head of unit in the digitalization department of the German Federal Network Agency. They are also leading to innovation teams preparing for a national AI regulatory sandbox. So sandbox in the making. So here to my extreme right, but not to enter political terms, I have Antonino Rotolo, or Rotolo. Antonino Rotolo, who is a professor of legal theory and AI and law at the unknown University of Bologna. And he's an international expert in these fields. At the moment, he heads the Alma Mater Research Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence in Bologna. And since 2024, he has been coordinated US AIR, which is the European Research Project on EU regulatory sandboxes for AI. So he has been hired by the EU institutions to make sandboxes a reality in the member states. And to my extreme left, I have Mr. David Tabb, who is a theoretical physics engineer from Université Libre de Bruxelles, and he has a postdoctoral work at the MIT in the US. He joined 5 years ago after a long career in many places. I could take the whole session to tell you, but 5 years ago he joined Microsoft as the National Technology Officer for Belgium and Luxembourg, and now he's currently working in the Microsoft 365 Engineering Division, where responsibilities on technology blend with digital policy. So he will tell us about his views on sandboxing from the private sector. So I'm gonna warm up with basic questions to the panelists, so they tell us what they have done and the lessons learned, and then I will do particular questions to the panelists, and then we must absolutely reserve 15, 20 minutes for a dialogue with the audience, because I think this is the most important part of the session. So I kindly ask you, please, to be as brief as possible so we can have time at the end for the participation of the audience. So I will start with Aleida, if this is okay for you. So the question is the same for all of you. On the basis of your experience, Aleida, putting in place AI regulatory sandboxes, what have you learned so far in terms of design choices, in terms of scope, sectors, competent authorities involved, and what are your plans moving forward? Tell us about what you did and what you plan to do in the near future, please.
Okay, so thank you very much. First of all, it is a pleasure for me to be here with you today and to explain you what we have done in Spain to launch our current sandbox, because we are already operating a regulatory sandbox. We call it a pilot of sandbox because it's before the AI Act when we launched it, but it is quite aligned with what we see it's gonna be the implementation acts of the AI board and the AI office. Having said this, first of all, even in the Digital Decade report on 2025, this sandbox recognized Spain as a pioneer in the developing of sandboxes. For us, of course, is quite a good news to be there. And I'm now here to explain what we are doing. So as I said, just in 2023, so it's like a lot of years ago, we established what we considered should be the legal basis of an AI sandbox to be launched afterwards. We wanted to launch it quite close to the AI Act. because the first part of our sandbox was not to work with companies. The first part of our sandbox was to develop guidelines that could be used during the sandbox, because in a sandbox you need to have some type of support documentation for the companies and for the high-risk systems that are involved in it. So we dedicate like 1 year and a half in having this type of guidelines for each of the obligations and requirements of the AI Act. So this was our first point. And after that, just at the end of 2024, we launched what we call the call to have at least 12 high-risk systems that should be involved in the sandbox. First of all is to choose, what we had to do is a decision is to choose which sectors will be involved, because we had resources to go with 12 and no more. So we decided to, we had like an horizontal sandbox in which we involved not only Annex 3, but also Annex 1. So we have in Annex 1 systems on medical devices and in vitro diagnosis devices and machinery. And in Annex 3, we have systems related to employment, related to biometrics, to basic services and critical infrastructures. What we have done with the companies that have been chosen is we have like different phases in this sandbox. The first phase was to do some training with them, in which we use our guidelines. The guidelines could be a basis for the technical specification, and indeed we have shared these guidelines with other countries that are also developing their own sandboxes, and also with the European Commission, as you can imagine, because we think they're quite useful to know how to implement the requirements. The AI established the requirements and a high-risk system has to accomplish, but we have to see how we can accomplish with these requirements. So after the training phases, what we did is to give them a checklist in which they more or less know how they are accomplishing with the different obligations. And after that, we elaborate what we call an action plan, a sandbox plan. So the different companies had several months to go through this plan in order to improve their systems to be completely satisfying with the AI Act. Now we are finishing this phase, and then we will go again through this auto-diagnosis with this checklist to see how they are going at the end of the sandbox. I will tell later about the experience that we have had and all the things that we have learned. But I think this has been quite useful also for companies, but also, of course, for us, that we have learned a lot just going through the AI Act, not just reading the text, but going deeper on it. And this is what a sandbox is. Regarding the governance, this is the process, and regarding the governance, we established two different groups. We made a call of interest to establish what we call a panel of experts, in which we had 40 experts. We have 40 experts for the sandbox that are of different backgrounds, and they are quite useful and quite supportive when we have doubts on how to implement the obligations of the AI Act. I think this is completely necessary. We cannot do it alone. We need experts to assess also and to assist in the development of the sandbox. And we also, of course, we, as General Director for AI, we were responsible of the sandbox. We will be notifying authority in Spain, but we also established what we call a group of market surveillance authorities. In Spain, we will have different market surveillance authorities for AI. One of them will be the Data Protection Authority, Spanish Data Protection Authority. Another one will be the AI Supervisory Authority of Spain. Also, the Agency of Medical Devices. We have different authorities, and we make them to be participating in the sandbox because it's quite necessary for them to be there and to change a little bit the idea of supervision to help to develop the requirements, and I will go through that later. Regarding the future, the idea, as I said, this is a pilot. We call it a pilot. In the future, we will establish a sandbox within the AI supervision agency, and also with the collaboration with us and the Data Protection Authority and all the digital rights authorities, the ones of Article 77, you may know that from the AI Act, to develop, the same idea as we have done. We have discussed a lot about what a sandbox should be. It has to be only assessment to companies to develop their solutions, and also to innovate in things going with the Market Surveillance Authority and with the Policy Authority, but to have also infrastructure. The issue of the infrastructure, I will tell later, requires some issues regarding state aid. So it may be a little bit complex in this moment, but we have proposed, at least from Spain, we have proposed in the modification of the General Blocks Exception regulation to include sandboxes, so we don't have to do this type of grants call to use of infrastructure, because I am completely convinced that infrastructure should be quite necessary for the companies to develop their solution. But everything comes later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aleida. It's interesting to see how we like to play with words. So doing a sandbox is very complicated, but if you do a pilot, it's all right. So everybody today is doing pilots, and the EDPS is also doing a pilot sandbox, getting a lot of inspiration from what you did in Spain, by the way. We call it inspiration, although we call it simply copying, but it's inspiration. And so I think it's very important to start with something concrete, with a pilot. So thank you very much for sharing this. Before I move to Germany, I would like to go to the European perspective. So why, Antonino, tell us what is it that you're discussing at the moment with the experts in the field? And how many pilots do you see are forming up, and what are the trends, please?
Yeah, how can I?
No, it's okay.
It's okay. Okay, very good. Well, yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, to see also friends with whom I'm working since a long time ago. Okay, a minute to explain what USER is doing, right? Yes. So we are a consortium, so basically there are universities, but also AI factories, AI factory integrating also testing experimentation facilities, and also European Digital Innovation Hubs. So basically we try to connect all the dots on the different initiatives that are launched by the European Commission, right? For supporting the AI ecosystem. So the mandate we have from the Commission is to support the AI office itself, first of all, not only the member states. The AI office and of course the member states. I mean, we work very, very intensively with Germany, with Spain, and many other member states to develop models, templates, procedures, tools, and define the different components of the AI regulatory sandboxes. So basically, what we see is a different, very high level, perspective. We see different member states operating, also European Data Protection Supervisor. So we're also working with them. So what we see so far, I mean, just to follow what you said in your question. So first of all, we are doing many pilots, right? Actually, we probably talk about later on in the second stage, but we are running close to 80 pilots at the moment, so 80 companies from all the member states, and also from non-European member states that are planning to operate in the European market. Very interesting interaction with those companies, and they would like to play according to the rules of Europe, right? I mean, Aleida was mentioning one first topic is if the sandbox is supposed to be horizontal or not. It was a discussion at the beginning because the AI Act states that the AI regulatory sandbox, which is also was not also very clear what was at the beginning of the process, should be horizontal or not. So because a regulatory sandbox is supposed to do some regulatory experimentation. Regulatory experimentation means two things. On the one side, should support innovation, because that part of the AI Act says that support innovation. So supports AI providers, basically, and the innovation ecosystem, but also is supposed to support regulatory learning. Why? Because AI is a very young technology, so it's also relatively unstable. It's very young. From the regulatory perspective, it's very young. Cars are a stable technology in a way, even though you can embed in cars AI. So the question, and that was difficult to clarify the role, also because of the regulation is very young. So at the very beginning, we realized that the situation was quite ongoing, quite not stable as well. And the horizontal thing is difficult for authorities, for example, while is required by the AI Act. Why is difficult? Because you need competencies. And that's also one thing, right? If you run the experimentation, regulatory experimentation in Annex 1, is different from Annex 3, and is different if you do it in manufacturing or you do it in medical device. And so this was a very challenging issue for, I think, all member states, right, at the beginning. But the AI Act states that you need to be horizontal, right? No, you cannot, even though if you pay attention to the drafted implementing act says that member state can establish some priorities, right, annually. So this was the first question we saw. Design, I take 1 minute and I stop. How to structure the process. And how to structure the process depends also on the purpose of the sandbox. And the sandbox, what we saw was that there are at least two purposes. On the one side, to support companies to accelerate conformity assessment, for example, for those for a high-risk system, for example. If you are a high-risk system, you as a company would like to accelerate. But the acceleration should be focused on innovative AI systems, so new technologies, or new applications or known technology. That's the discussion, what is innovative, But that was one issue. The other point was the incentives for providers to join. So what's the added value you bring in terms of innovation, right? And that, is a different thing in different domains, right? If you work in innovation in financial market is one story. If you work on the manufacturing, another story. The innovation mechanisms are different. But many companies went to us. They said, can I post on LinkedIn that I joined user pilots? And then we realized that in some sectors, there is a value for going through the sandbox, right? Because for them, it's important to say to the ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, we are working for doing something trustworthy, and we would like to play according to the rules of Europe. The final comment, and I stop, is about the authorities. Alida was mentioning, for example, the fact that in Spain, there are many market surveillance authorities. All other member states have this situation. There are some other member states in which you have a simpler perspective. There are one single market surveillance authority for the AI. But this, independently of the different choices from the member states, one issue is important: how to synergize among authorities. We are in a community of data protection people, right? It's obvious that the market surveillance authority cannot do their job without the data protection authorities. There are some member states where the data protection authorities are also the market surveillance authority, but not in all member states. So here, this raises a very important question that we saw in user: how to make it possible that different authorities can cooperate together, because AI is just AI. We don't like to experience the Italian post office. What in Italian post office happens? You go to the queue, you go to the guy, you do this. And once you do this, you realize that you have to undo another queue because there is another thing you have to do. Here, the points are not the queue is in the post office. Here, the queues are the different regulations. GDPR, AI Act, all the different regulations. If you develop AI, you develop AI. And that's a thing, I think we are talking about in the user. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't think we want to go to the Italian post office for the moment. But I think what you're doing, I think, is crucial. You're focusing on the issue of cooperation, which is term that is abused by policymakers. They tell all the time, yeah, we need to cooperate, we need to cooperate. Well, actually, cooperation is the most important thing for human development. It's much more important than cognition. Cognition is being taken over by machines. But cooperation is what makes us humans capable of achieving miracles. So indeed, like, having the possibility to have all these authorities cooperating in practice and for real, I think it's enormous but added value. So now we saw the perspective from Spain. We saw a big picture from someone working with the AI office. And now we go to Germany. Germany, which forever has been the heart of industrial development in Europe. It was the place where the power of industry and the power of engineering in Europe has been the most influential. Now we are moving from the industrial world to the algorithm-based world, where Europe will have to also show vision and power and capacity. So having Germany moving forward to this realm is strategically important for us Europeans. So Yvonne, what is it that you're doing from the digitization department to make this a reality, so Germany and the European Union continue being the leaders in this field?
Well, thank you for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share our experience so far with our pilot project for an AI regulatory sandbox. So the expectations are now quite high. I'm not sure if we will be able to meet them already. But basically, before I start, maybe I'd like to place my institution, my authority in the overall context of the AI Act. We are the Federal Network Agency, and we are a market surveillance authority. And we have been designated in the draft legislation as the competent authority to be in charge of the oversight of the AI Act and as a single point of contact. This legislation, the national transposition of the AI Act, has not yet been adopted, so it's in the parliamentary procedure. We hope that it will be adopted by the summer, so that what I'm saying now, it's all under we are doing it as a preparatory work.
A pilot.
A pilot. It's a pilot, exactly. That's how we can resume it. We are not in charge officially yet, but we hope that it will be in the summer. So one of the requirements of the AI, as Leonardo has already mentioned, and which has already been depicted here, is to set up a regulatory sandbox. So we have this new task, but we have absolutely no experience with it. So it's a completely new concept. So our vice president told us, well, we need to gain some experience, find someone with whom you can gain experience. So we initiated a pilot project together with the Federal Data Protection Authority in Germany and the Hessian Ministry of Innovation, which is the Ministry of State. And what we shared is that all of us are interested in the concept, in the instrument, but we have all no idea and no experience with it. So the Data Protection Authority was itself interested in setting up a sandbox as well, but with a data protection focus. And they have already done so since the beginning of the year. So they have also launched the first call for proposal. And the colleagues from the Hessian Ministry, their interest was obviously to see whether they can also offer a regulatory sandbox at the regional level in order to accommodate the wishes and the innovative drive of the companies in their region. So we were all driven by the same by the same lack of knowledge and the same intention to do something and to bring something forward. So this was the explanation of the partners we had. The pilot as such started last year in May and lasted until December last year. And our objective was to gain practical insights at an early stage before putting into operation a real sandbox. And the insights were supposed to be related to the requirement and the process of a sandbox. The process covering the selection procedure, the setting up of a sandbox plan, the writing of an exit report, written proof, and obviously also the elements of regulatory guidance. What is a regulatory guidance, and what can we offer to the companies? And obviously as well, as you know, the AI Act, the requirements are quite complex. The standards to translate these requirements are not there yet. So this is like a great work done by the Spanish colleagues regarding all this documentation you have prepared, the technical documentation, which we used because they're really helpful. So this is like a really big challenge to translate the requirement of the AI Act into a technical document. So we based our pilot on 2 use cases. We didn't go for a call for proposal because we got the feedback from our networks, from the stakeholders. Don't worry, there are so many use cases just waiting to be participating in the sandbox. You don't need to go for a call for proposal. We will organize, or we will channel or give you some contacts. So when we set up the sandbox and we went back to all those stakeholders, which told us before and no problem to find use cases, we asked them, so please give us some contacts we can address. And at the end, we didn't have a lot of of companies or use cases ready to participate. So in the end, we had 2 use cases we could onboard, 2 startup companies in the medical device sector. So we didn't choose explicitly to go for the medical device sector. It was like more or less a coincidence because these were the 2 companies interested in joining. So I think our pilot project has identified 3 main aspects which are really relevant for AI sandboxes when you establish them in real life. First, we managed to identify or clarify the expectation of companies when they participate in a sandbox, meaning what do they need? Second, I think we managed to better understand what is the service we are offering as a regulator, as a competent authorities, because we are not those providing the AI expertise. The AI expertise is coming from the companies. We are providing the regulatory expertise. And third, we were, thanks to this pilot, we were aware before, but now we are much more or even more aware about the organizational challenges of such a sandbox, because we need to onboard the other competent authorities when we have a use case which is touching up another sectoral regulation, like in Annex 1, the different product regulations. So we have to find the right market surveillance authority. We have to convince this market surveillance authority to participate. And obviously we always have to involve, I don't know if it's always, but most of the time, the data protection authority, because usually you always have some kind of sensitive data you are looking at. And maybe we didn't have like such an extensive number of documents, technical documents we can, as an output of our pilot project. But what we did is with one startup company, we tried to, or we prepared a roadmap, because this company had a medical device and was planning to integrate an AI component in this medical device. So what we did is together we looked at the roadmap and the systematic approach, how to start when you just have a medical device which is already on the market and you want to integrate an AI component. So we looked at the medical device regulation, we looked at the AI regulation, and we did like a kind of interplay, and we saw, okay, there are overlaps. So you don't need to do the things twice. For example, for risk management, there are a lot of things you can already use, but there are a few things which are only in the AI Act, and these are the on-top requirements you need to fulfill. And we published this roadmap, and we hope that this is like it's a small guidance document, but for a lot of startups which do not have the legal resources to look into all these different legislation, it's a first starting point to get on track. All these documents can be downloaded on our website. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We need to stop here, and later we will focus on more particular things, hopefully with the participation of the public. So half of the AI unit of the EDPS is in the room. So I'm sure you will be taking good notes of all the things we are learning today. I'm learning a lot. So now we move to David, and we move to the private sector. David, you're here because you work for a big tech, for Microsoft, but looking at your CV, I see more merit in what you may say, because you've been working as National Technology Officer as a Chief Innovation Officer at ING in Belgium, for example. You have been the CEO of a joint venture. So you have a lot of experience, not only in Microsoft, but in the helping companies to innovate and to comply with the law. So how do you see, not only from the Microsoft perspective, but of course this is also relevant, but how do you see from your experience and your expertise all these sandbox pilots going on, and what kind of opportunities you see there for innovation, for compliance, for making the AI Act really helping both innovation and human AI?
So thanks a lot for the invitation and for being here. Look, in the previous discussion, I heard about certain design decisions, right? I'm going to assemble experts. Should we be horizontal, vertical? Getting the clarity with the startup about the mutual expectations. These are all design decisions at different level, operation level, positioning and these type of things. No, I don't have direct experience in setting up a sandbox. First of all, I want to say that these sandboxes are extremely important. If they are set up in the proper way, they can make a big difference, right? So these design decisions are actually quite important. Some of them are design decisions that, while they are not good or bad answer, you have to make a choice, right? Whether you specialize in certain things or other. And there are certain design decisions which actually matter. You can do it the right way or the less right way. So I don't have experience in setting up a sandbox, but I have experience in setting environments where startups can come and test their technology to get early feedback so that they can adapt. And I created such an environment for ING, actually the first one in the ING group. We call it the FinTech Village, where we onboarded a startup for a period of 3 months so that they could test their technology, whether it was useful, but also whether the technology would be compliant with our policies, with regulation and stuff like that. What I would like to do here is to show the analogy and the difference, right? The level of energy, and then I maybe highlight a few key design decisions. The analogy is that in both cases, the objective is to learn fast and get feedback, because for the startup, the most important element at this stage of the life cycle is to de-risk. There are many unknowns, and one of the unknowns here is my solution fit for compliance, right? And if not, can I make it fit for compliance? And a different answer to that. And maybe the answer is no way, it's never going to work, right? And then it's very important for the startup to know very fast. And for the investors, they should stop investing, or they should pivot to something different. Or maybe it's something, it's all great, it's compliant, or it's going to be easy to comply, and that's very important for them as well. Maybe to raise further capital and to move to the next stage. And in between you have, well, it's okay, but not entirely okay. And here, there are a certain number of things that you can do to improve and comply and things like that. But in both cases, in all the 3 cases, it's very important. This feedback is very important. So the FinTech Village, and things are environment designed for startups to get that feedback early and to de-risk and accelerate their path to the market. That's the purpose. And it has to be designed for that purpose from the perspective of the startup. In the case of the bank, there was also another objective, which was, to work with the startups that would actually solve our problems and be compliant and so on. And here it's a bit different for a sandbox. The key design decisions we took, I took, my team took, was one, to really focus on value delivery and being extremely clear on designing something that would provide that feedback, whether it was one of the three cases I mentioned, and help them if it's in between, solve problems. So it was designed to provide feedback. We paid a lot of attention to deliver that value and to create a reputation in the market. We understood very quickly that the good startups, right, didn't want to come to accelerators because very often it was not very good. And their investor, big venture capital firms, say, don't waste your time with these idiot bankers. Don't go to this accelerator, it's a waste of time. So we paid a lot of attention to delivering that value and creating that reputation in the market, also with the investors, so that they would advise, they say, no, go, but don't go anywhere, go to the fintech village because it's gonna accelerate your path. So we paid a lot of attention to delivering this value, and we paid attention to have this distinctiveness, reputation in the market, and then that led to a number of execution decisions, right? In terms of, for instance, you have assembled experts. We paid a lot of attention to get a lot of top-notch experts, including hiring a professor from Berkeley, but also working with, top-notch venture capital firms and serial entrepreneurs, things we didn't have in the bank, to bring that value to the startups. When we selected the expert, also our internal experts, from the legal department, from compliance, from risk, from these type of things, we really make sure that we had top-notch guys, right? People that would come there to help the startups, to add value, and not to have a coffee with a startup because it's fun and cool. And we made sure that not only they had the willingness to do that, the ability, that at the time, that they had the commitment, and that they also had the right attitude on helping the startup, not compromising with requirements, but when there is an issue, say, okay, you don't pass the bar, but let's work together to find a solution. And therefore, we also paid attention in their attitude, but also their network. Could they mobilize resources in the organization to help solve this problem? If they were well known, if they could unlock things, if they could remove bottlenecks. So, in a sense, it's relatively simple. If you start to focus on the value creation and you organize things to actually deliver on the promise to the startup, it's going to work. It's a lot of effort, learning. That's why the piloting is actually a good thing. You learn by doing. And I would also make one last comment. It's very important that in the case of the sandbox, it adds value to the startup, but it adds value to the competent authority that set up these things. It's a great learning opportunity. And in order for this to be sustainable, and it requires a lot of attention, a lot of resources, it has to bring value to your institution so that you get the resources, you get the support to make it work over the long run. And it takes time. It's a journey. I mean, it took us 3 years to start to get the reputation we want to have in the market.
Thank you very much. I take good note of some of the comments that you've made from your experience. This idea of the de-risking, I think it's very important.
It's a key. That's the only reason why startup. No, they also could be useful for other companies. But if you focus on that, the single most important element at that stage is to de-risk. And good startups want to get confronted as soon as possible to the most risky elements so that they get an answer. And the answer can be, look, no way, stop. And many startups do stop. And then you want to stop early before you spend too much. Or there is a way to fix it and you want to fix it. Or it's great and then you can move on to the next thing. And the impact is not just great, if you pass something, you can raise capital more easily, better conditions. So it's actually very, very important.
Indeed. No, we also have this experience, and well, at the end of the day, the DPS is an auditor. So we often are confronted with the fact that EU institutions and bodies, they want to comply, but they are afraid that if they expose themselves to the EDPS, they are going to get into trouble. So sometimes we say, look, we go and we work with you, not as a pure auditor. We go there and we hear what are your problems and we give you some advice. And then actually, by working in this way, we achieve often more than just going as a pure auditor, because they learn, they implement things, and at the end of the day, we achieve more than with a formal auditing process. So I think this idea of sandboxing is super, super smart, and I'm very happy to see that many things are going ahead. So we have used practically half of our time now. So wait. I need to ask a concrete question, like a 1 minute or 2 minutes answer to the panelists, so they can steer us, and then I expose the panelists to the curiosity of the audience. So I propose that we do this kind of telegraphic. So you answer with key concepts, and then we go to the debate. So my first question would be for Aleida. So if you could give us the 3, let's say, or 2 or 3 key lessons learned, so others who are thinking of starting with this sandboxing, that say, these are the traps, don't fall into these traps, or this is what we learned by doing it. I think it will be very helpful. And what will be your wish list for the future? 2, 3 things that you will recommend for the future. You already mentioned one, which I think is very important, is just to have the European Union involved in providing infrastructure. But if you could answer in 1 or 2 minutes, I would be very grateful. Thank you.
Well, okay. First of all, what I've seen, what we have learned is quite incredible, but we think that a sandbox is for startups and for them to innovate, but startups had a lot of work. So at the end for them, it's true. It's like, okay, I have to do all these things now. I mean, they have to see, we have to sell why this sandbox is good for them to be there and why this is not a loss of time, but they required it. So this is the first point, because this was a problem when we launched the call. We didn't have so many enterprises coming here. So at the end, we have more than 12. But we thought it was going to be like we would have like more than 100, and it was not like that at all. So first of all, what also surprises me is that once a startup is inside, they are quite proactive, even more than the biggest ones. What we see with the biggest one, big companies in Spain that are also operating in Europe, but they are European, is that they have a lot of departments. They have the technical department, the legal department, compliance department, whatever department. The ones that applied for the sandbox are the technical ones, but they have legal departments that have other type of roadmaps to comply with the legal and regulations. So we need for them to be both involved in a sandbox. So the first thing is that when you launch the call, and for big companies who have a lot of departments in general, we should say that this is not only for technical teams, but also for the legal ones to change their processes, because if not, we are giving them twice, the work they already have. So this is something we have learned. Of course, there are some other, also, we've seen that there's important challenges now, and we need to have more established all the things that are going to be published in the following months, like, for example, the standards. We think that we have the guidelines, but the standards are quite deeper on this. So I think this is important for a sandbox to be useful indeed, because if not, we're assessing about anything in it. So this is important. And also to have quite clear things like which is a high risk and is not. Yeah. We had this doubt with the call we launched. We had a lot of systems, and we had some doubts with some of them. So we had to consult the AI office just to be sure about this. I think that the guidelines on high risk are quite useful. There is a draft now that we manage in the AI board, but this is quite important. It's like my second thing that I consider necessary to establish a real sandbox and to be completely useful. And Regarding the third point, as you already mentioned with the medical devices, is the interplay in between different regulations. Of course, with the data protection regulation. For example, in my team, in general, we know a lot about AI. We know a lot about the AI Act. We are the one adapting the AI Act to Spain. But we don't know so much about data protection. And there are some systems like the biometrics ones, which requires completely an assessment of the data protection authority. But everything should be easily made. I mean, we should not give more work that it is necessary. So I think that also all of our authorities have to change a little bit the mind to be more innovative and to change from supervision, as you say, to assessment. It's a different thing. To supervise, like you put stamps on something and you say, okay, everything is you just pass all the checks, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But when you assess, you have also questions. You even have doubts about your own regulation. And then this is quite interesting. And this is what I think it's quite new for the sandboxes. So this is something, I mean, quite interesting. And we have to work in a very cooperative way. So for my wish list, not only to have this Giver modified to offer infrastructure easily for our companies in a sandbox, but I would say also cooperations among the different market surveillance authority, of course, is in my wish list, to have this interplay easily made, and also to have, we have to develop applications for companies to do their auto-diagnosis. So they can know if they have to go for a sandbox because they had it, as you say, to the risk themselves to go through an innovative application, or just having this diagnosis, they know that they don't have to go to a sandbox, which they have to put resources, of course. The companies have to put resources, that's for sure. So they just say, okay, my system is okay, it's a high risk, but I have passed all the obligations because I've seen this in this application. So a lot of work to be done, but of course a lot of experience that we have seen just going through a sandbox in Spain.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Antonino, how can we do a smart knowledge transfer? So how can we make sure that whatever Yvonne is doing and learning can benefit Aleida or other people in the same business? Because I think this is crucial, because otherwise we are just overlapping and doing the same things in all places. What would be your advice to achieve that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, this has to do with the regulatory learning, the fact that you avoid fragmentation of the interpretation of regulation, and we are very good in Europe to have a fragmented view about regulation among the different member states. But I mean, the experience we had is that, first of all, we need to share some basics of how the sandbox should work, right? For example, there was a discussion regarding the fact that you should need a digital infrastructure or not. You know, for example, Ada was mentioning that, right? Our experience is that you don't need always the digital infrastructure, but there are cases where you need it. Yeah. We need to share at least the basics of how they do. Because, for example, you know, in our experience, you know, all the companies that went to us, the first question they raised was, is it AI? The second is high risk? And once it's high risk, then we started working on the obligations. And this is done through a certain methodologies. The methodology should be, I would say, shared as much as possible among different member states. Of course, member states may have their own view, their own style of sandboxing, but you know, that the process should be more or less the same. And then we realized that in some cases you need digital sandboxes, so the experimentation in a controlled environment managed by the authority. Not all cases, but several of them. And also some cases, real-world condition testing. Real-world condition testing is very challenging also for the data protection issue, because you know it means that you are basically testing the system in the deployment context, the real deployment context. So overall, I think it's very important that all the member states, the different authorities, share all the outcomes of their results, and they cooperate during also the pilots, but also the real sandboxing. Why? And then they stop. Because one thing that we learned is that take the high-risk systems. The obligation applied to the iris systems collide. So take Article 10, data governance. And the Article 10 requires a number of things, among them bias detection and mitigation and data representativeness. Okay, this may collide with accuracy requirement because bias mitigation can decrease a bit the accuracy. And accuracy requires a higher human oversight mechanism. So all the obligations are there, right? High risk, human oversight, accuracy. But the point is how to implement the mitigation measures for reducing the risk, right? And that's a clearly trade-off. The trade-off is in the hands of the providers and of the regulators. But in order to harmonize the trade-off, we need to share experiences during the pilots. So the pilots are quite important.
Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the room of Paul de Hert, who is the man who makes this miracle possible. So thank you very much, Paul, for being here and for, I guess, sacrificing a huge part of your life so we can have this kind of conversations here. So I move now to Yvonne, and I would like to focus my question on the issue of the cooperation between the different authorities. Because we know Germany is like a mini Europe, right? There you have all these landers and you have all these regional data protection authorities and regional safety authorities, and I guess will be a challenge. So whatever you figure out for Germany can be easily extrapolated to Europe. So what would be your takeaways from the cooperation exercises done so far? Is there how we can move from the nice words of cooperation to the reality of people from the EDPS AI unit really sitting with people from the data protection unit in Hessen and then coming out with a template that then is published on the web, and then 300 people are using de facto, etc., etc. What will be your takeaway of the experience you had so far?
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Okay, from the pilot, I mean, the experience was quite positive on one hand because we had the Data Protection Authority as a partner, so this was an easy one. But we tried to get on board the relevant or the competent authority for medical device regulation. We didn't succeed on that. So, but we only had 5 months. So within these 5 months, we were not able to onboard the right competent authority for the medical.
And why was that?
Well, we contacted. There's a central body for the medical device regulation in Germany. We contacted that body and we asked them, "Can you please name us the right market surveillance authority in charge regionally for our startup company, which was located in a certain area?" And I engaged in various discussions with the head of this body, and he said, "Yeah, it will be difficult. I'll get back to you," but he basically never got back to me. And as it was a pilot, and we wanted to move forward, in the end, we didn't have the involvement of this competent authority.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is the elephant in the room. So why do you think this authority never got back to you? Because it was because it would require resources that they didn't have. It because they were afraid that if they get into this garden, they will not like what they see. What is it? What do you think is stopping this cooperation? Because once we know what is stopping the cooperation, we can do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, I will be speculating, but I think, for our pilot project, we were simulating a regulatory sandbox process. So for us, it was important to see how the different processes work, what we need to look at, and where are the challenges. So it would have been nice to have already at this stage the involvement of the Market Surveillance Authority, but it was not the core focus of our sandbox. But what we learned from that is that for the real sandbox we are trying already now, as soon as the law is in place, the national law, to contact the central bodies responsible for the different product regulation, and to find beforehand or to ask them to nominate or designate a central contact, which we could then, for each product element regulation, contact directly and say, okay, look, we have those use cases in this sector. We would like to go on because we think these have huge potential. They're innovative. They are looking at technologies which are not known yet. The regulatory questions are really interesting, and they have at best also societal benefit. So we want to go for that, but we need you to help us with the sectoral knowledge. And we hope that if we establish the link before with all the different sectors, I mean, we will not be able to do everything, but we will focus on the sectors where we think most of the use case will be coming from. And we will try to establish beforehand a cooperation to make sure that when we need them, it goes quite quickly. Because if we lose like half a month before you identify the right market surveillance authority, it's
Indeed.
a bit useless.
I think
It's a wish, actually. It's not yet.
but
we
I
don't
think
have a best practice yet to share.
no, but I think what is also important to realize is that we don't have time to waste.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
this is absolutely essential that we start working on this.
But if I
Go
may,
ahead.
If I may add, I mean, one major challenge for the market surveillance authority is obviously as well that they don't have the AI expertise yet,
Yeah.
because they have the expertise in the sector, but AI is a new thing for them as well. So they have the same problem as we do. We have limited resources. They have even more limited resources. So we need to cooperate and find a way to move this instrument forward.
Okay, thank you very much. The last question, and then I promise we move to the audience and to the debate. Debate is for David. How would you sell a company to go and participate in a sandbox? Because I think this is very important. Yvonne has been telling us that they have learned that they need to sell the sandbox to the market surveillance authorities. Now we will need to know how to sell the sandbox to the startups and the big companies. How will be your selling pitch in 1 minute?
I think the selling pitch is very simple, right? Any company that wants to succeed, that is serious, need to comply, right? It's very simple. And therefore the selling point is only there if the setup, the sandbox is a way for them to get to compliance faster in an easier manner, right? And that's the selling point. We're going to help you comply, and if there are difficulties, we're going to help you solve those difficulties. And if it's you really need to revisit fundamentally what you do because it's really problematic, we're going to tell you fast so that you don't lose time. That's the selling point, right? And I think that has a number of implications also because I fully agree with the need to collaborate, and I think it plays at different level. At an early stage is to share best practices. I tried this, didn't work, or did you do it, or I can do that. That's the operational level, the setup. But also important is the coherence at the overall system level, right? Because the value proposition we just discussed collapse if they go to a sandbox and the outcome is, oh, great, fantastic, you get a good exit report. But then, when they go to third-party, assessment, or maybe there's, they expand in different regions, there are complaints, all of a sudden it doesn't work because there are different interpretations that defeat the purpose. And though there is a double challenge here, which is for each of you to make their sandbox work, but also to make the system work collectively. And that's important to cover as well. And one last comment, in order for this to work, although I understand the point that it's horizontal and so on, I think inevitably, if we want this to work, there will be a level of specialization over time. Because, if maybe, Irene, you do something in automotive in Germany, it's cliché, right? And you do 4, 5, 6 times, you're going to learn specific knowledge about this thing, or medical devices, or maybe you're going to assemble a data set in a protected environment, and that's an asset that's going to make you attractive for people who need this thing. Or maybe you're going to invest in creating synthetic data, or just the expertise of your people. So I think inevitably there will be a level of specialization, and the startup will pick and choose the good one, not where it's easy, but where they're going to get the tough and frank feedback and support. And therefore, over time, I think there will be a level of specialization.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we have reached the most exciting part of the discussion. If the lady in the front row, and then Professor Mantelero, and then Arvin, please. And then, yeah.
Hi, I'm Dr. Daria Dergacheva. I live in Spain, but I got my postdoc at the University of Bremen in Germany in AI and platform governance. So I'm not a legal scholar. Maybe my questions are not very coherent to this particular panel, but I wanted to address elephants in the room, so to say. There are generative AI models that are already working on the European market, and we all know them. Do they come to sandboxes in any way, or how do national regulators deal with them, or do they deal with them at all? That's the first question, and very quickly the second question to Yvonne. And also Alaida, maybe if you also worked with bigger companies, could you tell us with not with which, but what was the incentive to come to the sandbox? And for Yvonne again, do you see a problem, a contradiction in the way Germany is not very digitalized in terms of... You were talking about medical devices, and my daughter, she has diabetes. And so we were getting mail like letters from Dexcom, and it would take like 6 weeks to correspond. They could not answer my email, or I don't know. So I think, how will you deal with this? Thank you.
Thank you. Alaida, would you like to start, and then Yvonne?
Regarding these big AI models developing companies, well, our sandbox was focused on, as I said before, the different sectors. So it was important for the companies to work in the sectors we have chosen for this call of the sandbox. So at the end, they didn't go through this. I think they, at that moment, because it was like nearly 1.5 years ago, they didn't have systems to go to this, or they were not interested, but some of them were accompanying some of the startups. We have big companies, big American companies, accompanying the startups because they provide them, for example, with infrastructure to make the development. So, I mean, at the end, it's true that we have to collaborate. At the end, we are helping our startups in this, but our startups, they come with these companies because they require something from them. But it's not that these companies are the first main actor in the sandbox, but they are a support for the big companies. They also sometimes work as a support for startups because they have them around. I mean, startups are somehow collaborating with big companies. That's quite normal. And they also help them with the assessment to pass through all the process of the AI Act. So this is how they have come to our sandbox. That's important too, to know that sandbox in member states, as far as the AI Act is now published, is like this, but it will say with the omnibus. I mean, the supervision of systems that are developed under the big models I mean, what we call GPIs, generative purpose AI models, are under the sphere of supervision of the AI office, not of the member states. So they will be, the main, I would suppose, they will be the main actors in the sandbox that will be developed by the European Union after the omnibus is published.
So, Yvonne, please.
The regulatory sandbox will not solve all the digitalization problems in Germany, obviously. We know our position in that field, and we are trying to improve it. And we have started with we have a new government since a year, and we have introduced for the first time a digitalization ministry, which is a completely new ministry. And one of his main tasks is to push forward with the digitalization in Germany. But be happy that you do not receive faxes, because we still use faxes. So this is a progress already. I'm sorry. Sorry, yeah.
Okay. Professor Mantelero, please.
Thank you very much. Just a question. What is the risk in terms of legal experimentalism, we can say, of sandboxes? Because sandboxes was thought having in mind that we have a regulation, we have the implementation, then we have a sandboxes. Now we have a regulation, we have not implementation, but we have sandboxes. So the sandboxes are based on something that we have not. It means that different bodies will suggest to the company different way in order to deal with the regulation. And the risk is that these different companies will implement in different manner, also supported by the supervisory authority, the regulation. So I think this is a strong tension in terms of fragmentation and legitimization of this fragmentation. Because if I'm a company, I have a sandbox in Spain, and another company with the same business, a sandbox in Estonia, and the results are different, and both are okay according to the authorities, then it's not clear what is the standard to implement. This is my question. Thank you.
If I may, Italian professor putting a question, Italian professor giving an answer.
Yeah, I mean, we are creative. Yeah, okay, yeah, we are creative. Yeah, right. Well, yeah, there is a risk of experimentalism, but I think there is not much to do at the moment. Why? Because if you consider the obligation in the AI Act and you apply in real technology, it's far from obvious that we know how to apply them at the moment. Why? Because one thing is, as I said, the point is the obligations are not standalone obligations. They are interact with one another, and the technical application is not easy at the moment. This is one of the main reasons why there is a discussion, a delay in the harmonized standards, because the harmonized standard, when they started discussion about that, the idea of the technical committees was procedures, right? But procedures don't say which is the threshold for accuracy, which is sufficient for medical device in cancer recidivism, right? You don't know that. You need to, and if you speak with medical device regulation authorities, they said, we learn from the state of the art in the literature. But the point is that if you apply in the medical, in personalized medicine, you don't have a protocol for all applications, right? For example. So at the end of the day, in order to work out a credible application of the AI Act, we need to experiment in a cooperation among authorities and providers. So it's inevitable. I agree with you. There is a risk, but I don't think there is much to do more than this at the moment.
I can try. I understand what you say, and it's correct. But at the same time, we have also to acknowledge that when we are not in the situation you described, where the regulation is supposedly clear, take GDPR, and I don't know many years after, we still don't have legal certainty. We still have many different interpretations. So I think it's fine for me to have this experimentation. I think it's good, depending on what we do, because it's surface tensions, disagreement, different interpretation. If we do something by surfacing that and it triggers a process of alignment, then in a dynamic way, it can leads to more, not perfect, legal certainty. So there are different ways to achieve a coherence between different things, but that requires the cooperation that Antonino just mentioned, right? If you leave it, look, it's different, then it's going to stay different. It's not easy. There's no good answer, but let's face it, right? Even in a supposedly more positive scenario, we still don't have, and I can talk about Germany and the different Länder and the interpretation of GDPR. We don't have necessarily legal certainty when the conditions are supposedly better, right?
If I may, 1 second. Here, the point, if you explain this to I try to explain this to my colleagues in constitutional law, and they get crazy about that. Because for constitutional law, is absolutely out of scope the fact that, the application of laws depends on the cooperation between providers and authorities, So I understand that the point of experimentalism that is a bit, it requires us to revise a bit the way in which we apply the regulations.
Indeed, I give you the floor in a minute. Indeed, I think what the discussions reveal here is that we need a change of a mindset. The traditional mindset of how regulation is understood, applied, how knowledge is shared, I think needs to be updated a little bit because the world is changing. But I would like to mention just an anecdote. So I think as important as experimentation is also standards.
True.
Mm-hmm. So this week is the week where traditionally I go around the commission, the presidency, the council to beg for money for next year, right? So this year I took with me my head of AI, Sonia Perez, to say, Sonia, you have to explain why we need the money because AI is so important. So I like the fact that she came to the budgetary authority and she said, look, we have 15 working groups in the AI board working on standards. I only got 13 people in my team. So if you want us to cover the 15 standards, could you please just at least give us a couple of more people so we can cover this? So this is, I think, apart from the joke, I think the elephant in the room is both. We need experimentation, but we also need the standards. Otherwise, we cannot advance in any meaningful direction. Please, Mr. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I give you the floor right now.
Arvin Guzzi, working for Technical University at Netherlands as an AI governance lead. I'm currently very occupied with setting up an AI sandbox environment. And I was wondering, also considering AI systems being IT systems, and in the IT domain, we are already familiar with quality assurance systems and also test management, right? So I was wondering, also maybe a question for you, Aleida, how have you gained insights from that domain and applied them within the AI sandbox environment? And also, I was also wondering what the feedback was from the providers that had come up with use cases and worked with you throughout the sandboxes.
Thank you. Before I give the floor, no, it's okay. Aleida, please. Sorry.
As I said, in the panel of experts, we have people coming from the digital world, and they are the ones who are giving this type of feedback when it is needed. Indeed, the issue is that at this moment, for the obligations, there is not much things required with the tests that are normally done in the digital sphere. I'm also an engineer, so I know that. So they are not working so deep on this type of issues when we are trying to comply with the regulation. But of course, this is not the main knowledge of our expert team, but we have it in the panel of experts, the outside panel of experts.
Okay. Yes, please.
Maybe one comment, and there is a difference in terms of quality of tangible products and intangible products, and within intangible products there are specificities about the AI system, and we have just to recognize that the quality infrastructure, accreditation body, assessment body, and so on, is very well developed for centuries for tangible products. It's not yet there for intangible products, and less there for AI systems, which are designed in a different way to training process. So a lot needs to be invented and developed in this domain.
Okay, so now I'm in your hands. How long can we continue? People need to go to the... We have to stop the session now. Not time for an no. Okay. So the boss is telling us what to do. Thank you all very much. Thank you to the panelists. Have a nice day.